I support the Black Lives Matter movement. I've never said I've supported violence. I don't support, anybody, any bad actor going in there and committing crimes, whether it's a riot, lighting buildings on fire, mistreating police officers, as I would never feel the same way about if a police officer mistreats anybody, including someone who's a minority. I don't have a problem with athletes speaking out about it. I have criticized some athletes like LeBron James for not defending Jews when it comes to anti-Semitism. LeBron, to me, is just not a very good spokesman for this. But I do support the players in general with the Black Lives Matter movement. Don't have a problem with the patches. I don't have a problem with people kneeling. I have said I would like to see some names of some officers, some fallen officers. I think that's just as important, so that could bring people together. But with that being said, there are some coaches in the NBA, like Steve Kerr, who I've interviewed before, and when he was here for USA Basketball, he was very cordial. I asked him about gun violence. In fact, he gave me about a 10-minute answer, and we played it on our show, if you remember. Steve Kerr's one of those guys, very intelligent, very outspoken when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement, gun violence, hates Donald Trump, but, I think he does it, though, in the right way. He picks the right times to do it. Gregg Popovich, another guy who I respect very much, who also I interviewed here in Las Vegas, and he was very cordial to me. In fact, he does insult a lot of members of the media, but he did say I did a good job interviewing him, so I was very proud of that. But Popovich is one of those guys that constantly talks about, politics, the Black Lives Matter movement. Again, a guy who's, not a Donald Trump supporter, and usually, not all the time, but usually I agree with him. If you're going to talk about innocent black people, like, for example, we talk about Philando Castillo, which was a horrible, horrible situation. And there are other shootings out there.
You can talk about Breonna Taylor.
Absolutely. Yeah. Breonna Taylor.
Which was a really convoluted situation.
But completely innocent.
I agree.
Another black person.
She was absolutely completely innocent. Her boyfriend was not.
Another black person who was gunned down for no reason, and horrible. We could name a list, right? And if coaches want to talk about those people, I'm all for it. I think that's great, and I think let's raise awareness. Let's talk about it. I don't have a problem with it, is what I'm trying to say. But I think Gregg Popovich made a very, very big mistake the other day. It was after one of his games. And by the way, after a basketball game, that is not the time to be talking about, it's just my opinion. After a game when the media is talking to you, you should be talking about the game. You shouldn't be talking about racial injustice and political stuff. If it's at a practice, like Steve Kerr does it at a practice, or, maybe pregame, I think that's fine. But after a basketball game, you should be talking about basketball. Again, I could be wrong. That's just my personal opinion. So Popovich took several minutes of his press conference to talk about racial injustice, but he talked about the Michael Brown case. And let me play the audio for you first. So this is Gregg Popovich talking about Michael Brown. It was the 6-year anniversary on Sunday of the Michael Brown shooting. Having a listen to what Gregg Popovich had to say.
Today's 6-year anniversary for Michael Brown. I don't know if any of you thought of that today, but 6 years ago today, he was gunned down and killed. So this was a young man who had just graduated from high school about a week earlier, I think. And there was some sort of an altercation that everybody is not agreed upon yet. But the fact that is agreed upon is this is a young man with his hands in the air running away from an officer. Running away, and receives 6 shots in the back that killed him. And it's just another example of an overall culture, not every policeman, so don't take it out of context, but an overall culture that sort of presumes guilt or feels danger because it's a young black man. And this particular officer even said that he was in fear of his life. Now, I can't imagine being in fear of my life if somebody's running away from me with their hands up. That's not too scary. And of course, he was never charged.
All right, so there's a lot of things that I'm going to say here. And first of all, let me be very clear. Most of the time when Gregg Popovich talks about racial injustice, I'm with him. I'm with him 100%. Same thing with Steve Kerr and a lot of these players. I'm speaking to anybody out there that supports the Black Lives Matter movement, particularly those with a platform like a Gregg Popovich. Stop bringing up Michael Brown and Ferguson. Now, Brian, you might be saying why. Because the evidence is overwhelming, and I can't believe I have to repeat this. What Gregg Popovich said is completely inaccurate. I don't care whether it's on the right or the left. When people say things that are not factually accurate, that's when I get angry. I get angry with callers, and I'm angry with Gregg Popovich. Let me be very clear on this. What happened in Ferguson, Michael Brown was a thug. He went and committed a strong arm robbery. Now, you might be saying, Brian, well, Brian, that doesn't mean he deserved to be shot. Okay. Moments after the strong arm robbery, he got into a physical altercation with a police officer. He went after his gun. How do we know this? DNA evidence was on the gun. Then, some black people that were there, I'm talking 5 or 6 people that were there that saw the shooting, testified in court that Michael Brown was not shot in the back. Michael Brown did not have his hands up. He charged at the officer.
He was bum rushing the officer.
How do we know this? Not just because of African Americans that testified, but because of forensics, because of several autopsies that said that the exit wounds came out of his back. They weren't in his back. His hands were not in the air. The hands up, don't shoot narrative was wrong. I am all for racial injustice and for getting some of these shootings to stop. I am with the Black Lives Matter movement, but stop bringing up Michael Brown. Michael Brown was a criminal. Michael Brown charged at the officer. Michael Brown went after this police officer's gun. He had just committed a strong arm robbery. He was a bad dude. And let me tell you something else. If you charge at a police officer, you deserve to die. Okay? If George Floyd had charged at Officer Chauvin, would not be speaking the same tune. Completely different situation. If Gregg Popovich wants to talk about racial injustice in this country, talk about George Floyd. Talk about Breonna Taylor. Talk about Philando Castillo. Those are the cases that he should be bringing up.
Elijah McClain.
Yes, exactly. That's another one. I'm so sick and tired of it. And you know what? They did this in the George Floyd funeral. Benjamin Crumbs, as I like to call him, because he always grabs crumbs from these families that are grieving. He brought up Michael Brown. Stop bringing up Michael Brown in any of your speeches. I don't care if you're LeBron James or Gregg Popovich. You have a platform. Stop bringing up cases where just because they're black, you're bringing them up. Michael Brown deserved to die, period. You don't like what I have to say? I don't care.
And I would argue that defending someone who is clearly in the wrong simply because of the color of their skin is racist, Brian.
I can't speak to that.
I would say that absolving somebody of wrongdoing simply because they are whatever skin color you want them to be, and because they were involved in an altercation or a confrontation that resulted in their life ending with the police officer, that the police officer automatically is not only racist, but the other person is totally immune from criticism or immune from any wrongdoing is racist in itself. And Joe Biden 2 days ago brought up Michael Brown. So did Kamala Harris, Brian. There are a lot of politicians right now that and Black Lives Matter, the entire movement started because of Hands Up, Don't Shoot and the Michael Brown situation.
Okay, so here's where I'm pulling back on what you're saying. I don't agree with anybody talking about Michael Brown because, in my opinion, based on the evidence, Michael Brown deserved to get shot. With that being said,
it's pandering.
Hold on.
When you do what Biden did 2 days ago, it is absolute pandering.
Okay, it's not pandering if you bring up some of the other cases. I don't agree with bringing up Michael Brown. However, it is a fact that African Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be shot by police. It also is a fact that there are police officers out there that are racist, and there are some police officers. There are some police officers out there that will treat people differently than people that look like you or me if they are African American. That is wrong, and I am okay with anybody and everybody talking about these subjects and having conversations about them. I'm not okay with bringing up Michael Brown. That is where I draw the line. Bring up the cases that are factually accurate, like an Officer Chauvin who had a knee on George Floyd's neck for over 8 minutes. And I've seen the video over and over again. It's very difficult to see, and it's the most difficult part of it for me is when he's calling out for his mom, and then he's saying, tell my kids I love them. That is difficult for anybody to see, regardless of George Floyd's past, regardless of what he had in his system, regardless of what he's done in the past. That is very difficult to watch, and it was wrong. But what happened in Ferguson, as far as the police officer's actions, were not wrong. That officer's life has been changed forever, and I'm so tired of people putting Michael Brown in the same categories of Philando Castillo. I'm so tired of it. And Gregg Popovich is wrong. And when you have a platform like that, this is my issue, and this is my same issue with Donald Trump. When you have a huge platform, ignorant people, not everybody, but some of your ignorant followers are going to buy into it and believe it. Now, it's okay to buy into and believe that there is racial injustice out there. Now, whether you agree with systemic racism or not, the bottom line is there are racists out there, and sadly, might be a small minority of them, but some of them happen to be police officers. It's okay to believe in that. Why? Because it's true. But stop bringing up Ferguson. Stop bringing up Michael Brown. When Gregg Popovich does an interview and he says Michael Brown's hands were up in the air, the hands up, don't shoot narrative. When he says he paints Michael Brown to be innocent, and he says in that statement, he was only in high school.
Right.
I don't care whether you were 16 or 60. When you charge at an officer and you attack an officer, you're probably going to get shot and you're probably going to die.
And one thing about Michael Brown is that he was 6'4", 300 pounds. This officer was not a very big guy.
Well, whether
Michael
the
Brown,
size doesn't really have anything to do with it.
Well, I would say that it does because he was much more likely to overpower that police officer, get a hold of his gun, and do whatever he wanted to do with it.
Here's why I don't. That to me doesn't matter, because you can weigh 50 pounds or 500 pounds. The second you go for an officer's gun and the second you charge at an officer, that officer has the right to use deadly force. Period. There is no other evidence to me that matters. If you go after an officer and charge an officer, you are threatening an officer's life. That's it.
But
You're done.
If an officer is not a very big guy and you are a large human being and you are running at that person, the officer is going to take it into account. You can't tell me that that's not the case, Brian.
The officer can take it into account.
I would take that into account.
But I'm just telling you, if a small person, what's a nice way of saying a little person?
Well, not like a midget.
Well, yes. If a tiny individual, like our producer, is chasing after a police officer, doesn't matter whether you're 500 pounds or 30 pounds soaking wet. The point I'm trying to make is this: the officer has the right to shoot, and Gregg Popovich is wrong. Period. Let's just end it right there. Gregg Popovich is wrong. Mr. Popovich, you're a fantastic basketball coach. You're well respected. You have a huge platform. Stop using it with misinformation. It is a big problem with what's going on in this country.
Will you tell
right
Gregg
now.
Not to shut up and coach?
No, absolutely
you
not.
won't say that?
No, absolutely not. Because I just said I support a lot of the stuff he talks about, and he's right about a lot of things. Gregg Popovich is a very smart guy.
Just a minor mistake here for Popovich.
Well, I don't think it's a minor mistake.
Okay.
I wouldn't call it a minor mistake.
Do you think he makes mistakes like this on a consistent basis?
No. I hear him talk about racial injustice and issues all the time, and usually he does a much better job. This was a mistake that you can't make. Stop talking about Michael Brown. A lot of people in the African American community want to talk about Ferguson and Michael Brown, the hands up, don't shoot. It is a mistake. It was also a mistake for Barack Obama to send members of administration to Michael Brown's funeral. It was one of my biggest criticisms of Barack Obama. He shouldn't have done it.